And we are back. And we just finished watching 1987's classic RoboCop by director Paul Verhoeven, with writing credits to Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner. This is our theme this weekend is dystopian sci-fi. This is the story of how a police officer brutally killed, I guess, right?
Yeah, he gets brutally murdered.
In the line of duty, comes back as the new hope for crime-ridden Detroit. Detroit always gets a bad rap,
especially back in the 80s.
Yeah. Is that when I guess like the car manufacturers were going overseas and
exactly
everything
that's
went
when
to chaos?
That's when all the manufacturing started dying and unions were all busted and.
This is a movie that is 37 years old and yet still stands the test of time. I mean, the effects are dated for sure, but the core of this story still is just amazing.
Yeah, some of the effects are dated. Some of them still look really good.
Decent, yeah.
I mean, this is all practical.
Yes.
All practical effects, all stop motion animation, green screens in some places. Mm-hmm.
But not overdone, right? And
well,
it's interesting
there
because
is
you
a
have
lot
all
of
that stuff.
There is a lot of squibs exploding on people.
Fair, but it's interesting because you have the mixture of all those elements, but nothing seemed out of place. Nothing seemed to overpower anything else within the scenes. It all moved pretty fluidly. And this movie is only an hour and 42 minutes. Mm-hmm. So it's not like some long thesis, right? But at the same time, you have a lot going on, but the pacing of the story itself is really well done. You learn a lot about this character in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting because Murphy gets killed, basically, and is resurrected. I'm going to go around the table and get impressions. I know that you kids have seen bits and pieces of this film before. I don't think you've ever sat through it from start to finish. Gee, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to start with you. What did you think of this film?
I thought it was good. It was entertaining.
Yeah. Did you find it incredibly violent?
I guess, but it just looks so stupid that it wasn't like bad or anything.
You didn't take the violence seriously because it was
Not
sort of
at all.
over the top, right?
Yeah.
What did you think of Clarence Boddicker, played by the lovely Kurtwood Smith?
His hairline was really pushed back.
He never had a good hairline.
No, yeah. I think he was born with an old man's hairline. Did you find him scary?
No.
No. Interesting.
Was he a good bad guy?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, he played his role well. The acting was good, but he was just he was one of those jokey guys.
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be like, I feel like all the heavies in this film were supposed to be very over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of RoboCop's suit? I feel like it still holds up.
I thought it looked good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it.
Olive G, what did you think of the film?
I thought it was good.
Yeah. What did you find good about it? We watched this film. This rabbit sat.
Yeah, did nothing.
And
as soon as we
sit down to talk about this film, he's just like,
the
I'm
thirstiest
thirsty.
freaking rabbit on the planet.
I thought this movie was good. I thought it had like a good story, and like I wasn't like bored while watching it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Did you find the big bad people kind of silly, or did you find them scary, or
Nah, they were silly, bro.
They were silly.
There's not an ounce of seriousness in them.
No, they are all pretty over the top. Even when I was a kid and I saw this,
you were like, what is going on?
Like I could say Clarence is a bastard. He's a total bastard, but he is gleeful in not like in a Joker kind of way or anything like that. Human life means nothing to him. No. It's all about money and being in charge. And the scene where they capture Murphy and they execute him, he's having fun. He's playing games. He's doing with the gun. Give the man a hand. What a jerk! What an absolute jerk! Yeah. But all the characters are kind of over the top, but you kind of expected that in sort of 80s action hero movies. The bad guys were always just eating the scenery, just hamming it up, and we loved it.
Yeah, for sure.
Nobody wants to see a real bad guy, so not in that kind of context anyway. It is a film about a guy who gets turned into a robot.
A robot, right.
Yeah.
So just really quickly, this came out July 19th of 1987. The opening box office in the U.S. and Canada was $8,008,721. The budget on this was $13 million, but the worldwide gross on this baby is $53,429,250, and rightly so.
Yeah,
Rightly so.
there's a reason why so much came after it.
Yeah, I mean, there was
varying
like 2
quality,
or 3.
but
Yeah, I'm surprised that the budget was only $13 million.
Back then, that was a
buttload.
Lot. I remember when there was a film when they were like, "Oh my God, it's $100 million. It's the most expensive movie ever made in the history of cinema."
Ishtar?
It may have been that, but it was just like people were marveling at that. They were like, "There's Hollywood's gone too far."
And now,
there's no justification for spending $100 million on a movie, and now that's sort of like
that's midway, right?
Yeah, that's sort of middle level budget.
Yeah.
You're like stunned when like the super cheap film comes out and you hear that the budget was only $30 million.
Yeah, and you're like, only 30? That's cheap, and it's like that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
that's more than I've ever made in my lifetime.
I wish I had $30 million.
Same, girl. Same. Yes. Yeah, but I mean, for a film from 1987, it still holds up. And like we said, some of the effects are dated, but some of it still looks cool. I mean, RoboCop's complete ensemble is
he looks great.
Yeah, he looks amazing.
He looks great. He always looked great.
Yeah.
And I remember RoboCop is especially special for me.
Here we go. Go ahead.
That's right. You're going to hear my RoboCop story
Again.
Yes.
Shut your ass.
I got dragged to the movies by my parents.
To see, what was it?
To see The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh, what was your mother thinking?
I don't know. She just won't go into movies. So we end up going to the theater. There was the little side theater on the side of the Kingsway that only had one movie in it. Mm-hmm. And after The Witches of Eastwick ended, the guy was like, "Would you all like to stay and get a sneak preview of another movie that's coming out? We want to get your opinions on it." And my parents never turned down a free movie.
Sure. Why? Yeah.
So
why
there
start?
we go. We sit down. Boom. It's freaking RoboCop. And this is like the RoboCop that didn't have a rating on it yet. It was it was more violent than this, what we just saw. Because from what I understand, they cut it down to get the R rating.
Yeah.
And I was, as a young boy in 1987, I was just like, yes! This is awesome! Had the best time.
Yeah.
Loved every minute of it.
And rightly so.
And I got to give them my opinions on a little...
What did you say? Do you remember?
I said I loved it. I thought Ed 209 was just the best thing
cool.
ever.
Yeah.
And...
was there a lot of... I don't remember. I paid full price and saw this in the theater and have no regrets about it because I enjoyed this tremendously. And in subsequent years, I think I'm pretty sure I only went to the theater once. There were times when I would see movies multiple times. This was not one of them, unfortunately, because it's still, as a 50-plus-year-old person, this still holds up.
It really does.
It really does. I mean, because I think at the kernel of the story... I feel like there's a lot to unpack here. We're talking about crime. We're talking about violence. We're talking about commercialism. We're talking about consumerism. The story is interwoven with these two news anchors that are giving little sides about what's going on in the world. And then you also have these built-in commercials interspersed in the story as well. And then you have the meat and potatoes of the story, which is the story of police officer Murphy and how he gets transferred from what sounds like was a cushy job into the mean streets of Detroit. And he is a civil servant, a police officer, and his job is to protect and serve and all that other stuff. But in this town, there's a lot going on. There's corruption. The police are at their wits' end. OCP is basically like a private company that's trying to take over the police department. I mean, I feel like Dick Jones's job,
they own the police at this point.
Right. Yes. It's said multiple times. Even like the Miguel Ferrer character is like, we own you. He's telling the Sergeant Reed.
I think they said the police entered a contract with OCP.
Right.
To, I guess, provide security while they build their mega project, New Delta City.
Yeah.
The New Detroit.
Right.
And to make things even more safe, they're going to
have these
put like
units
either robot
that
police
don't even sleep, don't need to eat. Although Murphy had to eat baby food, which was weird, but whatever.
He also had to sleep too.
He also did have to sleep, yeah.
But they were talking about Ed 209s.
Oh yeah, right.
Hilariously, just the demonstration.
Oh, just went so horribly
So
wrong.
and the president of the company is just like, Dick, I'm very disappointed in you. There's a guy who's just mutilated 10 feet away from him. He's just like, I'm disappointed.
Back to the kids. Olive G, did you find this movie incredibly violent?
No,
not
really. I mean, like I could tell it was fake.
Yeah. Yes, I think. But I think when you and I were growing up, this was considered like the pinnacle of violence. Like people talked about this film and how just.
It's funny because there was nothing in. I mean, people got shot a lot in this movie. Mm-hmm. Obviously, limbs were blown off. They definitely cut down on that scene. On Murphy's death. They definitely cut that because I remember when I saw it, it was way longer and it was way bloodier. Same thing with the guy and the demonstration. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as far as like people, I remember people when it did come out, people were going nuts about the violence. But you're also like, this came out after like Friday the 13th and stuff like that, where it was sort of like, well, how do we kill people now? I mean, you look at the first Friday the 13th, it is beyond tame.
Yeah.
It is incredibly tame as far as a movie goes.
When it came out, oh my gosh.
There were like literally groups lobbying the government like, hey, this is too far or whatever. And then the second one came out and the third one came out. And I don't even know what number they were up to by the time RoboCop came out.
Yeah.
Probably like 3 or 4.
3 or 4 at least.
And it was just like, all right, what creative way can we kill now? And those, I mean, you got guts, you got arms and legs. I mean, I don't know if Hellraiser came out by this point, people getting their skin pulled off.
Possibly. I feel like 88, maybe?
Sometime around this time. Comparatively to other like films that were sort of like, our selling point is the gore and mutilation that you're going to see. Violence. Ooh, gore and mutilation. RoboCop is relatively mild compared to those because you're dealing with like gunshots and squibs and jets of blood, but you're not really dealing with like that horror element. It's all in the context of action. Yay! I mean, we were all Johnson at the end of that movie giving Robo the thumbs up after he blows several holes through
Dick Jones
and sends him crashing out that window.
The always lovable Ronnie Cox.
Ronnie Cox. He was like in the Halo. When did Total Recall come out? Because he was basically playing the same character.
Yes,
just a bastard.
Yes.
Bastard executive.
Yes.
Oh my God. People were mad at executives back then. Those are
I mean, they got news for you. They still are.
They were the ultimate bad guys. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, what is it? Worker salaries haven't gone up by much, but CEO compensation's got like 200%.
Yeah.
Come on now. So kind of to Olivia's point, the violence is super exaggerated to the point where it's almost, you could say, comical.
Yeah, I think at this point in our lives, we've sort of gotten used to that sort of... We got used to it to the point where it's kind of almost not actually necessary anymore. Mm-hmm. We're honestly happy with somebody having like a little hole in them. We don't need giant geysers of blood spewing out. And when you do see that, it's sort of... it elicits a chuckle because sometimes it's just so so overdone.
Yeah.
That I don't know if you could actually put that in like a serious movie anymore.
Yeah.
Where like, you have like this high tension drama and then suddenly somebody's head explodes violently.
Yeah.
It's just people's heads don't explode like that.
Yeah. Well,
It's like in Hot Fuzz, and it's like, did you ever shoot somebody in the head and their whole head exploded? It's like, no, bullets don't work like that.
But I also feel like if this came out now, it wouldn't be taken seriously. I think it would be seen as sort of like a exaggerated comedy.
I don't know if it would be exact, but it would, like, I guess you could sort of say this type of action, this sort of 80s action, it's sort of, if there was like a spectrum of movies, it moved its way more towards the comedy side of it. That's just what, when we see 80s action, when we describe 80s action, even when we're talking about films that, weren't meant to be funny at all, like Predator or Commando, they're funny.
Really?
They're
that
funny.
wasn't supposed to be funny?
When it came out, it was supposed to be like high octane, macho power.
Yeah.
Now you look at it and you're just like,
oh my God, this is hilarious.
This is hilarious.
Yeah.
The one-liners, the way people are just getting blown up.
Yeah.
That genre, 80s action, has moved itself over to the comedy side. I mean, it's been parodied so much. When we were watching it, you actually mentioned, I've seen they did this on
Bob's Burgers.
On Bob's Burgers.
What was the episode, G?
It was the episode where Bob starts losing his mustache hair.
So what happens? He gets like a robo mustache?
Yeah, it was one of the episodes where the kids all make up stories to try and figure out what's going on or the cause. Oh no, they don't do that. They make stories because one of the kids is like, but Tina's talking about fate. And one of the other kids, it was probably Louise, to be honest. She was like, if Bob never had his mustache hair, him and Linda wouldn't have gotten together.
Oh, yeah.
And Tina was like, oh, no, Faye would have brought them together. And then Louise was like, no. And then her and Jean make up those two stories of what would have happened if he hadn't had a mustache. And I think Jean was the one who came up with the RoboCop one, because I think Louise was the one who said Bob would turn into like Sasquatch.
Oh, Louise, the worst Belcher kid?
Louise is not the worst Belcher kid.
That was Jean. Jean's the worst Belcher kid.
I hate Tina.
No.
How dare you? How dare you? Tina
Louise
is the
best Belcher kid.
No, stop with your lies.
Tina's not the best.
Tina is the best.
Tina's not the best. You just like her because you're a pervert like she is.
No.
All right. Back to RoboCop.
Back to RoboCop.
I'm sure it's been impersonated in other. I'm pretty sure I've seen
Teen
it in
Titans.
Teen Titans, Gumball,
yeah.
all of them, all
of
the
them.
good ones. But yeah, like I was saying, that sort of genre, it's not to be taken seriously. We know not to take it seriously. Like even like with like I was saying with like horror movies, when you want like a real horror movie, it should never approach like the comedy side of things. And ridiculous explosions of limbs and heads flying off. I'm sorry, it's going to make you laugh. I laugh so inappropriately at many horror films because there's just something over the top and funny in them. You know which ones I'm talking about.
No, I do. You still laugh at them even after 50 years.
Hysterically. Seriously, David Warner's head in The Omen just spinning.
Yeah.
Just spinning in air. That shot, I mean, they must have got that on the first go because that was, if they did, that was God coming down and helping. God was like, I want to make this movie real good. So I'm going to make David Warner's head spin in midair after that pane of glass cuts it up.
Ridiculous.
So good. Hilarious.
Ugh, whatever.
Hilarious. But anyway, yeah. I think when they tried to remake this movie, I think they tried to just do action.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think that sort of action type movie works nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
80s action to be taken seriously. I think people went into most action movies in the 80s taking them seriously but having so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's just, hey, let's just laugh at it. or just enjoy it. You know, I'm not
yeah.
like saying laugh at it, like ha ha, stupid, but
Right.
just oh my God, this makes me feel so good.
Yeah.
And I'm not supposed to feel good when people are being murdered.
Yeah. But Ronnie Cox is a jerk, and
Ronnie Cox is a jerk. Everybody who gets it, and they deserve it.
Yeah. They get it good.
They get it good.
Gee, question for you. So part of the story is the fact that the Dick Jones character and the Robert, what was Miguel Ferrer's name? Bob. Well, Bob, right. Okay, so Dick and Bob work for OCP, and they're both vying for the attention of the old man who's the head of the company. And obviously they want accolades. They want to be the number 2 guy. However, they're both working on projects to kind of beautify the city, to help the police, to restore law and order into a very lawless town, because they're embarking on this new project, this Delta City project. So ultimately, the thing that they want to accomplish is for good. However, they are portrayed as somewhat unsavory people.
Yeah, I didn't think that they were working for like good. I thought that they were working for their own gain.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with protecting cops or innocent people.
No. Agreed. But on the surface, it's like, oh, we're doing this thing for good. But obviously, they're not good people. Bob isn't a good person. Dick is not a good person.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, well, you just said, like, you thought that they were just in it for the money and the glory, correct?
Yeah.
Do you think of the two, do you think either of the two had any kind of maybe compassion or altruism, the fact that they'd want to do something good for society?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that was kind of one of the points of the movie that nobody, like, I think we spoke about Verhoeven before, and that he tried to put messages in his movies.
Sure.
But the films were just so wildly
entertaining
that nobody really paid any attention to that.
Right.
And I think that's one of the aspects of the film, of this sort of faux altruism where a company's like, oh, we're doing it for you.
Right.
And meanwhile, it's just two executives snarling at each other like a couple little dogs.
Right.
Trying to basically
one up each other.
Get the most clout, get the most money. So this way, when the old guy kicks it, hey, who did more for OCP than me?
Yeah, exactly.
So now I'm
right, because Bob just wanted, I guess, hookers and blow.
That was a benefit that came with it, along with that executive washroom where
Ronnie Cox doesn't wash his hands.
Where Dick Jones just took a dump and then just grabbed him by the face.
Oof.
Touched his hair.
Yes. Oof. Yeah.
It was like that scene from Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Right,
like,
at the
bro,
end,
literally wash your hands.
I know. That definitely sticks out to me.
Bob washed his hands.
Bob washed his hands.
Bob washed his hands.
But Dick Jones did not.
Everybody else was too terrified to wash their hands.
No, they all
That one
left.
guy he didn't even finish peeing. He
wet himself. He had a big pee stain on the front of his trousers.
He pee-peed himself.
He did pee himself.
But yeah, I think that was one of the messages, the sort of profit at all costs, regardless of the human toll.
Yeah.
That was what they were both really after.
Right.
And that, I think, was one of the sort of messages in RoboCop about the evils of that sort of kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Nobody's writing a thesis about this and saying, well, remember in RoboCop, Bob and Dick were just evil.
Yeah. But, I wish somebody would, because this movie still holds up. There's a lot to unpack here. Again, thank you for mentioning that, because I think that, yes, Bob and Dick are just not nice people, and they're in it for their own bag of money and glory. So They don't really care about anything. Olive, what did you think of Officer Lewis?
Who the hell was that?
That's Lady Cop.
Oh, she was awful.
Yeah, why was she awful?
She literally could not do her job correctly. She tried.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Literally the only time I would consider her like really, really useful was when she killed that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, she killed Leon, yeah.
Yeah, she's like
very sad. Everybody laughed That was a very satisfying kill.
He's like, I did it, and then all of a sudden he just explodes. Like,
she also, who was the other one? The guy that went into the toxic waste. Didn't she splatter him?
no, that was his.
Oh, that was Clarence.
Yeah,
that was Emil.
No, but who?
Clarence. He walked in front of the car that Clarence was
yes.
driving.
He ended up walking in front of Clarence's car and
just
boom. Sploosh.
Yeah, that was also fun. Gee, same question for you. What are your thoughts on Officer Lewis?
She wasn't the most intelligent, I guess. I feel kind of bad, though.
Yeah.
Like, she did kill that guy, and it was funny.
What about in the beginning when she doesn't really help Murphy?
No, she doesn't.
I think, like, with her, it's a case of they give her a good intro, and then she's just kind of useless the rest of the thing. I remember when we watched Wicked City.
Yeah.
There was like the demon agent or whatever, and then the first time you see her, she's just destroying people. She's kicking ass. She's slicing people in half with like her razor nails or whatever.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden,
and then the rest of the film, she is just helpless and getting assaulted nonstop.
Yeah.
And this sort of felt like that, where in the beginning, it's like, oh, let's introduce Lewis, and she's just beating the crap out of some perp who's trying to escape. Just wrecks him. And it's like, oh yeah, let's go. I'll drive, whatever.
Yeah.
And then she just makes some really bad decisions and is fairly useless.
Yeah.
I mean, she does save Murphy.
Yes.
Which is helpful, but she's also she's also kind of responsible for why Murphy was turned into RoboCop.
Right. Fair. They should have waited for backup. Yeah. I still would love to see RoboCop the musical. We've been pitching that idea for years now, and yet it hasn't happened. I don't understand. Yes, and all the music is just like super serious.
It's
and
awesome.
Yeah.
I love the soundtrack to RoboCop.
Yeah.
My name is Murphy. I am a cop. I work in old Detroit.
Yes, please.
Brilliant. You don't have to change anything. Just slap some lyrics on there.
Broadway, get on that. Seriously. RoboCop the musical. Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Like a solo by Clarence called Bitches Leave.
So we are going to pair this with Logan's Run. I think, again, our theme for the week is dystopian sci-fi. At some point, we have to find the RoboCop documentary because I think that is just going to be.
Yeah, I've seen clips of it, and the interviews look great. We just mentioned Bitches Leave. There's an entire bit online where they show a story about that with
Miguel
Ferrer and Kurtwood Smith,
and
just impersonating the Verhoeven.
The way he said,
who apparently had no idea that bitches was a derogatory term for women.
Well, he's Scandinavian or something, isn't he? Or wherever the hell he's from. Yeah.
Or what was the other clip that they showed? Somebody working on the set and Peter Weller's just like, Robo wants a cookie. He's like, if you want an Oreo, you have to say it like a normal person. There's no RoboCop here. It's just Peter.
Peter wants it.
It's like Robo wants a cookie. Give him one.
I mean, do you feel like this also touches on not necessarily AI, but here's like a robot taking over the job of a human?
I guess you could see that kind of, but it never really was a major part of it because he was still a human being. On the inside. And even when they made the sequel, RoboCop 2
and 3. Oh no, he's not in 3, right?
He's not in 3, but I never saw 3.
I never saw 2 or 3. I only saw the first one.
2 is okay.
Yeah.
2 is okay. I like the design of RoboCop 2. Who basically the design, from what I've read, the design of RoboCop 2 was pretty much the effects guy railing against the fact that Ed 209, which he also built, was so simple that Chinese companies just immediately started selling Ed 209s, and he didn't get anything.
Oh, that's gotta suck.
So he made RoboCop 2 basically impossible to build.
Oh, nice.
Because it has such tiny legs and this huge hulking upper body.
Yeah.
So it's
I feel like China doesn't care about copyright.
But then it wouldn't be RoboCop.
Yo, remember the Danny's World plush? Like from the.
Oh God, yeah.
What was the story?
Your
some
daughter is
knockoff
addicted to
company.
Danny's World, right?
Right.
And so now there's toys for Danny's World, but this is a game that nobody's heard of. That's like an alpha. Yet somehow there are plushies. So some company is just making knockoff versions, and the creators are probably not seeing a dime of that.
Yeah.
And how do those plushies look compared to what the characters look like?
Oh my god. they look so awful, bro. Like, Goof's head is literally so small, and what they did to Shelly is terrible. And Pebble's legs are blue instead of gray.
Yeah. There's a
just
lack of care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you gotta fulfill those Christmas
it's
toy
almost
orders.
Christmas.
Exactly.
We gotta churn this crap out.
Yeah. Was this a big licensing and retail thing? RoboCop? I don't remember a lot of toys.
There were toys. I mean,
it wasn't like Star Wars.
Yeah, I think I was at the age where I wasn't really getting action
how old were
figures
you
anymore.
in '87? You were now
So
14.
Yeah, so I wasn't really getting action figures anymore.
Actually 13, because this came out in July. So, and you're born later in the year. So, yeah, 8th grade. Yeah, I guess you're not interested in.
Yeah, by
figures.
then I was like all into computer games and stuff like that.
Got it. I'm going to go around the table and get numbers. I'm going to start with myself. I am pleased as punch that this movie still holds up, has a soft spot in my heart. I went to see it in the theater in '87, loved it then, love it now. I love the idea of the ultra violence of the film, which doesn't feel ultra violent in this day and age, but I think still holds up, is part of the story and moves it along. The characters, we don't really spend a lot of time, but just enough to get a sense of Murphy and Lewis, Clarence and Dick and Bob, enough to not necessarily love these characters, but
you develop a
understand
strong feeling for them, so you want to see what happens.
Right. And I think to some extent, even though Murphy's the hero, he's also sort of a tragic figure here because his world is taken away from him. His wife, his son, they're gone. And he is now this thing, for lack of a better word. He's not really a human being. Although at the end, when the old man asks him his name, he says his name is Murphy.
Yeah, he
reclaims
his name,
that.
But it's sort of like a
bittersweet victory.
It's like a bittersweet victory because it's like, okay, he knows who he is again. He's, I guess, whole in the mental sense.
Yeah.
But his wife is gone. His kid is gone.
Yeah.
90% of his body is gone. I'm sure looking in the mirror is a hard thing for him to do.
Yeah. There was also that scene where he had gone originally to try to arrest Dick, and we come to understand what Directive 4 is. And as he's leaving, and like the order had been to like destroy him, and Lewis, I think that's one of the first times where she saves him, where she saves Murphy, and they're in the hideout. Was it there where they're talking about his wife? And because he's like, I just want to be left alone. And then she said that she left because she thought you were dead, and she remade her life. So I'm assuming she's moved on, maybe is remarried.
I mean, they discussed it a bit in the second one, but I don't really remember.
Yeah.
So what are you going to give this?
Wait, I haven't finished talking about it. I love sort of this satirical indictment of consumerism and the abundance of violence in stories. I think they definitely try to not poke fun at it, like the scene where those two guys are trying to like rob that woman or maybe even rape her. They're definitely shining a light on like excessive violence, whether it's in storytelling or even in real life. You get news stories constantly about stuff like that. And to something that you said before, how Verhoeven would try to weave these messages, but audiences just didn't pick up on it because they were so entertained by his storytelling that
the
a
spectacle.
lot of this stuff just flew over their heads. So it's kind of interesting that these just really, I'm going to say it, important pieces of storytelling in cinema history, because they are. I mean, listen, are you going to put RoboCop on the same plane as Casablanca? Maybe not. But I would make an argument that this film, again, to your point, the storytelling of 80s action films, there is a lot going on here. And this isn't your run-of-the-mill action like storytelling project. You have like the Schwarzenegger, and listen, I love those movies too, but there is something special about RoboCop because it is an action movie. It is to an extent a superhero movie. It is dystopian sci-fi, but there's all these other little interwoven things, again, like consumerism, like the fact that we live in a hyper-violent world, the idea of advertising and messaging and just all this stuff. How old Detroit, again, we talk about how Detroit is always made fun of or always not looked at favorably in media, but the idea of all of this stuff in here is just really amazing. And it's an hour and 42 minutes, but the way it's all pulled together just really works. And again, sometimes with time, things lose some of its cachet maybe, but here, I think this film just really works. It worked in 87 and it definitely works now. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give this film like a 9.5. Yeah. Is it perfect? Maybe not, but it's damn near it. And I think that, yeah, it's a strong script. The characters are really like, they're over the top, but they're really well done. Yeah, 9.5. I don't think that this could be improved. What say you?
Like I said, this film always has a special place in my heart.
Shut up.
Saw it before anybody else.
And you saw the good version.
And I saw the extreme version, yeah. And seriously, I was like a king at school when I was telling my friends about it. I was like, this movie is amazing. Anyway, so yeah, it always has a special place in my heart. Seeing it again for like the entirety of it from beginning to end, which I haven't done in quite a while. Yeah. I mean, I've seen like chunks of it as I scroll through the channels. Yeah. It still holds up 100%. Mm-hmm. I love this. I love it. I love the soundtrack. I love the way he looks in the suit. I love Ed 209. I love Ronnie Cox's evil Dick Jones. Even his name, you just Dick Jones. When Clarence is getting his ass kicked by RoboCop, he's like, "I work for Dick Jones." That name. Yeah. If I ever meet a Dick Jones, I'm not going to trust that guy because of this movie.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
The old man. He just did not care that one of his executives just got blown away right in front of him. Johnson, he at the end, he is my favorite character because he sees Ronnie Cox just getting his, and he like stands up, and then he just turns to RoboCop and gives him a big thumbs up. Oh my God.
I mean, he knows he's like second in command because the other two died.
It's just like, this is the best day ever.
Yeah. This is what I came to work for. Yeah. He looked like he was in a Mentos commercial.
Exactly.
Seriously. He was so happy.
Yeah, the effects, all of it. So yeah, I would give this a 9. The only weak spot I could see is Lewis. I feel like they could have handled her character a little bit better, made her seem less inept, especially in the scene that leads up to Murphy's death. Yeah. Because looking back at it, you could be like, yeah, poor Murphy. Yeah. If he had a better partner.
He wouldn't have been RoboCop.
He wouldn't have been going through this. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, this is an awesome movie. It's an amazing film of its time, and it's still entertaining today. Yeah. Yeah, so 9.
Gigi, what say you, 1 to 10?
I'll give it an 8.
8. Olive G.
I'll give it an 8 too.
8, 8, 9, and a 9.5. Absolutely run and do not walk. It's currently streaming on Max. Is that where we saw it?
Yep.
Yeah. 1987's classic from Mr. Paul Verhoeven, RoboCop. Hopefully coming to Broadway soon as a musical. We'd love to see it. And with that, we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.
Good night.